Welcome to today's webinar, courtesy of the Kentucky Small Business Development Center right here in Louisville. We're all about hooking you up with free, super secret business coaching and training services. It doesn't matter if you're just dipping your toes in or gearing up for a big expansion. We've got the goods, the tools, and the know-how to help you win. To get the scoop, cruise on over to LouisvilleSmallBusiness.com or hit us up at 502-977-5800. Big thanks for tuning in to today's webinar. Feel free to drop your questions or chat it up with our speaker using the chat feature. Let's dive in.
All right. Thank you, Janet. That was great. Welcome, everybody, to another Toolkit Tuesday here in the evening at 6 o'clock. Thanks for joining us here. And as always, just to make sure you can hear us and everything's working well, it is Tuesday, even though it's kind of like Monday. Let's just make sure it is Tuesday. If you look at the bottom of your screen, you'll see a toolbar. If not, just take your cursor and hover around down on the bottom there. And you'll see the chat feature if you would just wouldn't mind clicking that, and then just chat or in the chat, put your name and say hello and tell us where you're joining from. It's always so fun to see where everybody is coming from and see what everybody is doing. So there's Everett from Lexington already. Hey, good to see you. Thanks for joining us tonight. Wendy, Louisville, Horace, Louisville. Good to see you guys. Thanks for joining. Kim from Eminence. I was just out there at the famous Eminence Speaker Company the other day, doing some stuff with those guys. E-Town, Victor, how are you? Mount Washington. Good to see everybody. All right. And, you know, just once again, as we go through tonight with our guest, JC, if you have any questions or comments, just put them in the chat and we'll get right to them. JC is really good about watching things and keeping an eye on all that. So this is, I guess, probably our second in a series of online marketing, e-commerce type of subjects. So I'm Dave Bedkin. I'm the director here at the Louisville Small Business Development Center. We're one of 13 centers around the state. And we are joined with our great friend and presenter tonight, JC Phelps, who is also with the SBDC from London, Kentucky. And he does a great job there. He's also does a lot of other cool things that I'll let him introduce himself and kind of fill you guys in on that. So let's do it, JC.
Thank you all for having me. Dave, I'm going to get you there. I'm from Russell County. Russell County pride here. No, but I was in the London Center and love London, Kentucky. So I'm from South Central, Southeast Kentucky. I do live in Louisville part-time for all my Louisville people on here. And I'm so excited to be here. I love training with you all in Louisville. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen, and we have the chat box warmed up. If someone would be so kind to say that they can see the slides, that would be good. We'll see who comes in for. Oh, Dave's first. He's verbal. And again, Dave and Janet said this. And P.S. Janet, I love the new video. That was very good. Thank you, Wendy. I see you in there. I do keep the chat up. So anytime that you all have a question, please go ahead and send it. I'm happy to address during the presentation. Otherwise, please feel free to ask questions at the end. There will certainly be time for that as well. This is a training that I really enjoy doing. We did a robust amount of e-commerce training during COVID with a few different partners, and that was really interesting. And now we have brought it in and we're doing some just on our own. But as Dave said, they are with the Louisville SBDC. They are leaders here in training for us at the state. But we are statewide. So again, I see you all are from many different areas in the state. We have centers that cover all 120 counties. And so no matter where you are, you have business coaches that are ready to serve you in a no-cost, confidential format. And we do this through co-sponsorship with the SBA and many other partners, okay? This is my email. I will go ahead and put it in the chat, as this slide will quickly go away, because you certainly don't want to look at me twice, nor do you want to hear me and look at me twice. So I'll go ahead and do that. My email is jcphelps@uky.edu. Always feel free to reach out to me if you have any questions. If you're, doing something with ecom, I'm always happy to be a resource. I used to work in the field as a business coach for about 4 years, and now I'm in the state office where I coordinate our training and education services. So without further ado, let's get started. Today is all about e-commerce, and I would be curious, you all can, if you want to put in the chat, maybe tell me if you're already using e-commerce or if you're just thinking about using e-commerce. You're thinking of adding it, you're thinking of pivoting, whatever it may be. That will be some interesting some context for me to see where you all are at. So if you want to put that in the chat, I see already using it, need help, right? I get that a lot. We're going to talk about Etsy, thinking about adding it. I love it. So even just the first 3 answers, I'm seeing almost the trifecta of positions that you can be taking here, right? Selling wholesale items on Amazon unsuccessfully. Very good. Okay. I love these answers. Thank you. I think there's going to be something in this presentation for all of you. And I'm sure that, if you didn't put in the chat, you're going to relate to one of these people. Similar to how I always present, I want to first set a foundation because I want to make sure that we're all on an equal playing ground, right? I want to make sure we're all on a playing ground of understanding what this actually is and what it entails. Then I'm going to educate you more on what's out there and some options that you can take. And then we're going to talk strategy and get in on that level. So if I were to ask you what e-commerce is, last time I gave this presentation, I was in person, right? And I used this slide and, I popcorned a little. And then if they weren't going to talk to me, maybe I started cold calling. But I won't cold call you all. We'll just go ahead and rock and roll. So if you were to ask me to define e-commerce, I would tell you it's the buying and selling of goods, but also services. People forget that often. Also services over the internet, and you're using electronic transactions and digital platforms. I say services because e-commerce is not just listing something for sale and then you, for example, ship it, right? I could be a spa and list that I have a 90-minute massage, a 120-minute massage, 60, whatever it may be. And I have that listed on my website, and you can check out and go ahead and book, right? And it's a form of prepayment. That's also e-commerce. And in my time here at the SBDC, I've certainly worked with both the goods and services sectors here in this. There are a few things. This is I have just a couple text-heavy slides, so please forgive me here. I'm going to say this out loud so I remember it. I don't know if you all are like that, but Janet, as always, I will send you the PDF version of these slides, and I'm happy to have that sent out to you all. So don't feel like if you have you miss something, you don't get it fully written down, absolutely no issue, okay? We'll make sure you get the info. But when we talk about e-commerce, it really, there's a lot to it. It's a lot more than just putting something up for sale online and then letting it roll. So I want to dissect it just a little bit. Certainly, the key component, number one of e-commerce is online retail, right? We are selling products directly to consumers, and those consumers differ, and we'll talk about that. They're web-based platforms, and we'll talk about those. When you sell, you have to accept a payment, right? So there's going to be an electronic payment involved and some sort of facilitation of securing that online transaction through either a gateway or, payment method of sort, whether they're using PayPal or they're using their credit cards, whatever it might be. I heard someone say, I watched someone say, selling wholesale items on Amazon, this is a direct tie to that, right? And that's supply chain management, right? One of the most significant hurdles for e-commerce for some people is supply chain, right? So supply chain in this context, we're efficiently working to manage the flow of goods from manufacturers to consumers. So this may be you buying something wholesale, You hold the inventory and then you have to ship it out. In the case of like an Amazon, for example, or some other platforms, sometimes the inventory is and the shipping, excuse me, is managed by them, right? That's the logistics. So you have a basis and then it's drop shipped, right? You're not having to maintain this inventory in your spare bedroom or in your basement or in a brick and mortar if you also have that. That's also an option. It just depends on the business model and what your logistic model looks like. I bring this up because it's important. It's important to think about which model makes sense for your product, but also for your customer. And maybe you weren't aware of drop shipping or something like that. And you might be sitting there thinking, well, if someone would ship it for me, of course I'm going to do that, right? And while there's a lot of reason to do it in some cases, I will tell you, it's not always so cut and dry. When you are relying on other people to ship, one thing you have to note is that you are now in their playing field, right? So if you have a customer complaint, they will be emailing you, likely, right? If you're doing a drop ship off your website, this is really popular in boutique clothing. They are going to email you, but it's not going to be your logistics system. You can see how this can be, kind of an issue. A key component of e-commerce is certainly digital marketing, my favorite topic. And digital marketing is often where we promote our services, our products online, on social, or through other means to reach a wider audience. One thing I want to point out here, this is not so much a digital marketing training, even though I do a lot of those. And we have several of those coming up if you check the Kentucky SBDC website under training that I'm leading. But here's why it's important, right? One of the biggest errors that people make in websites, or even more than error, it's a fallacy. We create a website, we create a web store, and we think it's out there, and so the people will come. And that's really an erroneous way to think about it, because we have to actively work to get people onto the site, right? Digital marketing is a large way to do that. You're funneling people to the site because you might be posting that sweater that you're selling on Instagram, on TikTok Shop. I'm sure if you all are on the app, you're seeing that right now. It's huge, and a huge trend right now in e-commerce. And customer support. This is something that is particularly challenging for some. If you have a brick and mortar store, you serve the customers that come in, and it's a lot more clear cut, right? But in customer support with e-commerce, you have to be ready to provide assistance and to resolve all sorts of issues and commentaries that you're going to receive through communication channels, whether that be through email or however they choose to contact you. One issue here is that while your email never really shuts off, your social media doesn't either when you're a brick and mortar, people know that they can come in the store from 10 to 6 or whatever it may be, right? If you're like me, you might be in bed shopping at night because you can't fall asleep. And I placed an order myself about 1:45 a.m. last night, right? We're shopping at all times. And so customer support becomes really important to analyze here because e-commerce is 24/7. This photo is a little grainy. I apologize. I didn't notice until it was blown up big, but all the same, right? There are multiple types of e-commerce too. And again, I point this out because I do think there is a confusion here. And one of the confusions is that, again, it's just a typical business to consumer product. I see the question about TikTok Shop. That's a great question. Yes, you can set up a TikTok Shop if you Google that, right? And you are on TikTok, you'll have to verify that you're a business account, and you have steps by which you have to apply to be on the platform to sell your item. But Erica, if you will do me a favor, if you want to send me an email or anyone else too, I'm happy to send you the step-by-step instructions, but there are a few steps that you have to go through in the TikTok app. That is absolutely blowing up, and it is blowing my mind. I also will plug this. I think it's next month. If you look on the website, I'm actually doing a TikTok training, and TikTok Shop will certainly be a point of topic there. So TikTok Shop is largely an example of this first one: business to consumer, businesses to individuals. But e-commerce can certainly be business to business, right? Who is your customer and who are you selling to? This is kind of an interesting one. It can also be consumer to consumer and consumer to business. We don't talk about these as much, but consumer to consumer, direct transactions between individual consumers facilitated by online platforms. The internet is an interesting place, and it allows us to take our talents and the things that we do and put it on a bigger platform. So e-commerce, I want you to think about B2C and B2B. However, some people argue that consumer to consumer, consumer to business is very important as well. Consumer to consumer would be this. Here's an example: an influencer, right? I'm wearing a polo or I'm wearing a sweater and I'm trying to sell it to other consumers. I bought it first and then I'm selling it through affiliate marketing. That's also e-commerce. Consumer to business might be that same person creating content for that business. That's personally, what I'm in. And some people may say that's business to business, but it also depends on how formal the model is, okay? But if you look it up online, I include this here in the text because you're going to see many things that talk about all four of those. A lot of you all answered that you're thinking about adding e-commerce, right? Maybe you do pop-up events, or maybe you have a brick and mortar, or maybe you're wanting to start a business and you're thinking about doing e-commerce first. And there are a lot of reasons to do that. So I want to go over a couple of the benefits to you of being an e-commerce business. First off, global reach. Absolutely, right? I'm from rural Kentucky. And so being from a rural town, a really small town of under 2,000 people, there's a geographic limitation there. There most certainly is, right? And so while I know not everyone will be in my little town, if I have a successful online presence, it doesn't matter, right? Because you can shop with me from Lexington and Louisville. You can shop with me from New York City. And depending on your shipping policies, you can ship and do business with people around the world, right? Please be sure to calculate your shipping appropriately because shipping is very expensive. It is convenient. There's 24/7 accessibility for people to search your products, to learn about you and your brand. You don't have to be there with a key, letting someone in the door to do so, right? Or setting up at an event. It's also very cost effective, and we're going to talk about costs, but it's cost effective because your overhead is going to be significantly less than in a traditional retailing format, right? You're going to have less so expenses and things like rent and staffing, although maybe you rent warehouse space because you have a large inventory. It's still going to be cheaper overall. It is easy to personalize. You can tailor your product offerings and your marketing messages. This is that digital marketing piece, right? To individual consumers based on their preferences. What I mean by that, we can run many different types of marketing campaigns to try to hit different target customers. And that's as easy as making a social media post, okay? That's a little harder to do. It's much harder to do in a physical location. And because I'm a math person, I have to point this out. We have data analytics, right? When we have websites, when we utilize social media, when we're looking at all of this stuff, and we're going to talk about ones you should be looking at, we have insights that are provided to us, ample numbers that will help us make data-driven decisions. And that's really important because, again, if you're in person, it's a lot harder to keep up with data and you're not going to be able to do it, right? So that's one of the benefits. But just like there are benefits, there are challenges, okay? Security and privacy, certainly a big one. We have to make sure that the site that you're using and the provider that you're using is secure, right? Because if someone's card is getting hacked, right? We've all, probably had issues with their credit cards. I certainly have. And maybe it was from shopping online, maybe it wasn't. But we have to make sure that there is authorized access here, and you have safety protocols using a reputable company, things like that. We have to make sure that customers will trust you. And a lot of that comes through the store itself, right? How many of you all have been on a website, you log on and you think, this looks a little sketchy. I'm not so sure if I want to put in my Chase card or my Amex on here. I do that sometimes, right? So part of your duty and your burden of building the store is to build a store that uses the correct platforms and safety precautions, but also builds trust within your consumer. I mentioned logistics and fulfillment, and it's worth saying again, a lot of people struggle efficiently managing product delivery. If you're doing the shipping, you need to have a very strong process. You ship out orders the next morning or whatever it may be from the night before. Competition is very strong. Competition is strong in person. It's even stronger online, okay, right? You think about your local community, you certainly are facing competition. However, it's really hard to navigate a new marketplace because you're competing with the large websites, and it's hard to outrank them. It's hard to get traffic from them, okay? I think this has to go with security and privacy, so let me look at this question. Should we look into the platform's status and compliance, assuming they're processing? Absolutely. And Wes, what you would really want to do here, we're going to talk about big ones. If you use one of the large players in the field, you're not going to have issues with that, right? These players are also foundations of very large websites. If it's a new and upcoming, provider, that's something maybe you need to question. And also, it's always good on your website to have a privacy policy. It's often something that's just hyperlinked. It's not just abundantly clear. But having a privacy policy, stating limited liability, stating, how you use consumer data and things like that. And again, if you want specific info on that, I'm happy to send that to you in email. But you should be looking at the compliance and past experiences of these platforms, absolutely. But again, if they're one of the big dogs, that's a pretty good way to vet it out. That's my quick opinion there. Great question. Technological advances, one thing you've got to realize is you're going to make this website, you're going to make this e-commerce store, and things are going to change. Maybe it's strategy, maybe it's something we learn about digital, and you're going to have to constantly update it to adhere to what consumers are doing. I just talked about TikTok Shop. TikTok Shop is new and huge. And so, people weren't doing it 6 months ago. So we have to stay up on trends, right? I mentioned customer trust, consumer trust. That certainly ties into security and privacy, but that is really important, right? Because you're not there interacting with them to build trust in a conversational way. So your website, through its branding and its imagery and its usability, has to build trust within them. And the last one that I would throw in there that a lot of websites may not say, and that's because this is the industry I work in, is that search engine optimization is hard. And some people really struggle with it. And SEO certainly plays into e-commerce. And I have multiple slides about that. So coming soon on there, right? I would say that's a challenge because a lot of people do not have the knowledge. Some e-commerce providers. Now, here at the SBDC, we are publicly funded. We don't necessarily recommend go to one business or go to one lending institution. I'm giving you several here, right? But these are really large companies. So I've had clients here at the SBDC, speaking with anonymity, that have worked with every single one of these but Magento. I'll throw that out there. And I threw on a few interesting ones. So let's talk about it. Shopify, we have trained with Shopify here at the SBDC. Shopify is huge. Shopify is very comprehensive. I think it is quite good. It's very efficient. And their support is outstanding. I will say that, right? I'm sharing a personal opinion here. But I've had many clients, I'll just speak from their experience, need to use Shopify support because something is going wrong. They need an answer. They have 24/7 support for you. So a lot of people look at Shopify. It's a great option. They're an industry leader. Another industry leader is Square. Okay. Square is a great one. It's a point of sale system, as most of you all probably know. They also offer, connections of that into being a website and an e-commerce store. Square is growing in the e-commerce space. This is what I would say. You can customize a Square website. It's getting better. But Shopify, I do think, has more customization that allows for it to look more like a traditional website and not just an e-commerce site that was put together. Again, just stating a personal industry opinion there, but Square is one I see a lot. However, some people have websites that have e-commerce folded into it, right? So that's one of the things you're going to have to think about. If you are thinking about going into e-commerce, question one should be, do you have a website and do you plan to utilize the current, or two, will you be building? And if you're going to be building, you might think about part one or part two. Those are, fair options. However, say you already have a WordPress site. I'm a WordPress user myself of over a decade. WordPress powers the majority of the internet, just stating facts here. And you may use a plugin or an integration on WordPress that they have, which is WooCommerce. That's what it's called for WordPress, right? All of these work very similarly, but it just depends which angle you're coming to it at. BigCommerce, does web design, they do hosting, they do payment processing. Magento, one that's kind of on the rise, open source platform. A lot of people argue that it is flexible and scalable. This is what I will say. Which ones on here have I seen the majority of clients use? Shopify, Square, and WooCommerce if they're a WordPress website, okay? Most common e-commerce provider I've seen among this list that, they're just starting and they choose it is Shopify. I will disclose that too. But there is reason to use all five of these. All five of you and other ones, all of you all have different needs. You have different desires, what you need out of this website. And so I encourage you to look at all of these, look at their offerings, gauge what's important to you, and then you can make an informed decision, right? I wanted to put some of the big ones out there for you to start that research. However, some of you all did say this in the chat, and I'm so glad you did, because there are other e-commerce providers. Etsy is a great one, right? We'll talk about it a little bit later. Own your Etsy website / store. It is your business, right? But it's on Etsy's website, of which you do not have ownership. But that is certainly e-commerce. eBay is e-commerce. Poshmark is e-commerce. And Facebook Marketplace is even e-commerce, right? TikTok Shop, certainly e-commerce. And so I put combination question because this is what I have. Maybe one of the most common questions I have is this. Someone will say, JC, I've been on Etsy for 10 years. I'm making good sales, but I'm wanting to start my own website to drop some of the fees. You may meet someone with different opinions in this, but this is just my opinion, and my country's going to come out here. My opinion is that we don't smack the hands that feed us, right? And so I think starting your own website and building that up is a really good thing. And we should all do that because the fees will be lower. But if you have a successful Etsy store, there is nothing wrong with selling it on both platforms, right? Because chances are you are established on Etsy, you have a client funnel on Etsy, and people will find you that way. Hopefully, people will find you on the website and you'll have to pay less fees there. But wherever you can get revenue, I say take it, right? Some people want to close their Etsy store, and it's really successful at times just to launch a website. And I think that's a huge error because those Etsy shoppers are not going to innately come over to your website. Okay, there's an issue there. So maybe you phase it out. Maybe you continue to use a combination. I say go where the revenue is, but always focus on building your own. I hope that makes sense. But I've had that so many times with clients, and it's a question. Now, I want to point out that e-commerce is not free, right? I'm just including a few here. I want you to do your own research. This is Shopify, at least at the time of taking the screenshot. Maybe there's been an update. If so, it won't be much. But you can see here, each one has their own inclusions, and that's kind of cut off, but just know it scales up, right? Shopify can be as low as $40 or $39 a month. And then there are payment fees, just like with everything. It scales up. There's a $100 option and a really large option, and a lot of large companies that and that you shop with that are national providers actually use Shopify. All that to say, that would be up to maybe $400 a month. As you can see, the $40 plan is what's most common, right? That's what a lot of individuals and small businesses use. Some people need to move to the second one because they'll find in those inclusions that they want more reporting, or that they want more listings, or whatever it may be. Okay, so this just gives you an idea on their pricing. It's always best to look at all of these. Here's Square, just throwing it out here, right? Okay. Excuse me, I progressed. So here's Square again. On the left, you can see they have a free option. They do. It doesn't have a whole lot of inclusions, right? So you move into their Plus plan, which is $29 a month. And then they have a premium, which at the time of this screenshot was $79 a month. Now, something to note here is that you have a lower percentage transaction fee, which is interesting. So you can do the math if that would prove to be worth it for you. But again, this isn't so much a training of, I'm trying to sell you on doing this or that, because that's not the point of what we do here. All I'm doing is positioning you to be able to make an informed decision, right? So Shopify and Square. But I mentioned Etsy. This is a wee bit blurry too, but I think you all can still read. A lot of people are choosing to leave Etsy these days. For my Etsy sellers, I don't know if this is the case for you. These rates may have already changed since I last took the screenshot not that long ago. But all that to say, some e-commerce platforms that are not your own website have significant fees, right? You can have an advertising fee. On Etsy, you pay per listing. And then there's a transaction fee. Look at that percentage, big, right? And then there's a payment fee. So you're eating at your margin here. That's something to consider. So again, you may be on Etsy and may be successful, or maybe you're going to list on Etsy. But you might consider going into one of these, building your own funnel and having clients spend money with you on a website, because you're not going to have a 6.5% transaction fee, right? That's astronomical and really adds up, right? You can do the math, but it just keeps going up and up and up. So a reason not to focus just on this. However, there are reasons to look at established platforms, because again, they have the web traffic. They have the people that are already there searching. So you can do an individual cost benefit analysis and determine if this is what is right for you. When you're choosing the right e-commerce provider, I want you to think about your needs, right? Are you trying to scale? Are you wanting to have a website that's highly customizable? Is there anything specific to your industry that you might need, right? Every industry is different. Again, let's talk about your website. Are you wanting to build a new website that's e-commerce focused? Or do you have an existing website, or are you building a new website where e-commerce is just integrated? It's one piece. You have other parts of the website, storytelling, blogging, whatever it may be. Or do you have an existing website that is good and established and has traffic, and you're wanting to start selling on there, so you look for a plugin on WordPress that would be like WooCommerce, right? This will change at the platforms of which you're looking. Pricing, I want you to look at transaction fees. I want you to look at subscription plans and the different add-ons that you might have, okay? And integration, any things that you have. If you have something that Shopify, for example, these large ones do integrate with many things. So if you have any processes, tools, systems that you're already using, you may look to see if there's an integration there for you. And a big one, a really big one, if you're anything like me, I work in the web world, but I'm constantly running into issues. And I'm constantly having a question, whether it be for me or whether it be for clients. And having good support, aka 24/7 support is best, right? Is really worth it, right? So if you're looking at these different providers, look into their support structure, because I'm confident that everyone on this call can leverage their skills and do this successfully. But no matter how good you are, you're going to run into questions. You know, we all do. And how many of you all have ever had a Facebook question and you try to contact Meta, right? It's almost impossible. But they're so big, they know you're going to use it anyway. These e-commerce providers are all competing with each other. And so a lot of them provide excellent support because that's one of their value propositions. It's what makes us book with them. So assess the support. It is maybe one of the most critical things I hope you leave this presentation with. A couple tips and tricks. This is not a web training, a website training in and of itself. I will have more of those coming up. You can see those on KentuckySBDC.com. But there are a couple web best practices that, you know, I think you should be aware of. Certainly, fast loading is important, right? Your website should not be slow. Again, using one of these big providers, they're going to be able to ensure a faster experience. A seamless user experience is this. Your e-commerce store should be easy to use. It should be intuitive. And so if someone is going on your website for the first time when you're designing it, you should make it very easy for them to find the products, right? It shouldn't be hard, because the harder you make it, the higher risk you're running of them leaving the website and, you know, going off. Tiffany's asking a question, can I use e-commerce for selling vacation packages? So you absolutely can, right? You know, if you think of like a cruise line, that's certainly e-commerce, but say you're a travel planner or something like that, that's a little bit more similar to a service packaging because you're not just shipping a product, but yes, absolutely. And that would be a very seamless way, if you chose to do that, Tiffany, to accept payment. That's why a lot of service providers do look into the e-commerce space, right? Or even, you know, if you own the place and you're doing bookings, that's also an e-commerce structure. So absolutely, that is a great use of it, right? Other best practices, thank you for that question, I appreciate you, is to provide clear and compelling product descriptions, coming very soon, we'll talk about it, with key features and benefits while focusing on SEO, right? If you are selling online, all you have is what you can see. I can't be in store and I can't feel the quality of the sweater, or I can't look at it, or I can't try it on, or whatever it may be. And so be very careful with the imagery that you use. You need good product images. Some people use stock imagery. Stock imagery is better than no imagery. Stock imagery is also better than bad imagery, right? But if you have the means or have the ability to take imagery of your product or service that is not so stock looking, right? We can all look at an image and say, yeah, that's a stock image. If you have the ability to do that, that's always better than stock, right? But stock is better than either nothing or something that is of poor quality. That's my quick opinion there. And again, the checkout process, it needs to be safe. We talked about that. But we also have to make it easy. So if you can, you know, set your settings on one of these websites to make it seamless, that's really important. I'll tell you, I've had things in my cart before, and then I go to start trying to pay, and it's just step after step after step. With each step, I want that sweater a little bit less. I don't know about you all, right? One of the most important things that you can remember when you're setting up an e-commerce store is that we are all consumers. We're all customers ourselves. And so forget that it's your own business and ask yourself, how would you perceive this website if you were going onto it? How would you perceive the shopping experience? And you'll glean a lot of insights there. Product listing tips. Again, a lot of info here. This will be sent to you, so don't stress about that. But search engine optimization rules apply in product listing. Your product listing title, aka the name of your item or what it is, should be used in your description. That's the same thing if you're familiar with SEO as keyword repetition, right? You need to think about your buyer persona. What do I mean by that when you're writing your descriptions? Know who's buying your product. And if you have a target market, talk to them in that way, right? You're going to talk to a millennial very different than you're going to talk to a baby boomer. It's always good to talk about features and benefits that motivate purchases. Certainly, it's a good selling point when we're reading the descriptions. If your brand has a tone of voice, mine does, it's kind of country, right? I say y'all and I say things like that. So reflect your tone of voice in your listing. That's a-okay. It's actually good for branding. No one wants to read a big paragraph. I don't know if you all feel this way. I think this is just a trend in digital marketing because of scrolling culture. But when you are creating a product listing, consider using bullet points. It's so much easier on the eye, and it makes people a lot less intimidated. Influential words boost persuasiveness. What do I mean? Say something like, whether it be, American made or high quality or something like that. Your copy can be optimized for search engines. We'll talk about that in a second. And use as many images or mixed media, aka videos, as you possibly can. I know that's prohibitive for some, but the more the better. So here are general tips. That these are website tips for SEO, but they certainly apply here in the listing. Again, the title of your item should always include your keyword. Your keyword is what people are searching, okay? So when I'm Googling and I want a yellow, maybe I'm thinking about fall, I keep thinking about sweaters. I want a yellow waffle knit cardigan. You will pop up in Google better if you use those exact words, right? That's a keyword. If your image has a place for alternative text, you should also place it there, the title, right? That's best practice. Here's one thing I want to tell you. This makes a huge, huge, huge difference, and one of the biggest SEO errors that companies make. When you upload an image, say it's your product, and you're uploading that photo to your website, how many times have we saved an image, or maybe it's even a stock image, and it will say IMG 1234, or it will be something big crazy .jpeg, right? That means nothing for Google. You should name your images with your search terms. So let's pretend that you're selling a mason jar candle and it's cinnamon spice vanilla. Just say that's the scent. The name of that image, when I upload it to the website to go to a listing, would be this: mason-jar-candle-cinnamon-spice, so on and so forth, right? Hyphens are important because that's how we do spaces in image titles. And you can see why this is important, because Google can identify that that's what this image is, that's what you're trying to sell, and they feel more confident pushing your website and your listing to the customer that has Googled wanting this mason jar candle, right? If you just say IMG 1234, image 1234, right? Google doesn't know that that's any different than anything else. So image titling is very important. And you need to be thinking about what these keywords are that you use in the title and that you use in the image. A mason jar candle. Some people may look for candles, but some people are going to look for mason jar candles, right? Or they're going to look for the scent of candle. These are keywords in the e-commerce world. And again, you should say it 2 or 3 times. So it might be in the title, and then you describe it in the description. So the title may say mason jar, cinnamon spice vanilla, whatever it may be, right? Then you'll describe that product and you'll use those same words when you're typing the description. Repeating it again shows Google This is what, in fact, this listing is about. By repeating the words, you're telling Google that those words are important to this listing and that they can value that. My guess is that because this is just a little SEO knowledge, this is a whole 1 hour training I do here at the SBDC, that this may be a little confusing to some of you. If you have questions regarding it, I'm very happy to answer. I'm happy to answer any emails you have about this. SEO is so important. And if you're thinking about doing e-commerce, I hope you'll come to an SEO training sometime, because SEO directly ties into product listings. Here's an example. I have a large e-commerce store, one of the largest in the country, actually, and it's Kentucky-based, Pink Lily, a huge company, right? They're selling this dress, and as you can see, there's multimedia, there's lots of ways to see it. You can see the style, and Thriving All Night. So that's interesting, right? Sometimes we have creative names. That's okay, right? But what did this shop owner do? They titled this Thriving All Night, Purple Floral One Shoulder Dress. That's because they want to pop up in Google when someone's looking for a purple floral one shoulder dress, right? That's very strategic. And so you can think of unique names like that first part. Maybe you have a colon between it, whatever it might be. However, it is in the title. It's also in the image title. If I were to save this image, I guarantee you it would say it. Looking at the listings here, it's cut off just a little bit from the photo. Please excuse me there. But this is very easy to read. It's easy to read because it's not just a big paragraph, right? It is in bullets. Guess what? Purple floral dress. That was their search term, right? They've put it in the description. That's what I was saying. Use it more than once. That's exactly what they did here. They know their buyer persona. So the average boutique shopper, they're wondering, does the fabric have stretch? How does it fit, right? How would I style this? And so they're answering these questions. This is answered with concern to the client. This is a wonderful example. And they are a huge business because of their success in e-commerce, okay? Another Kentucky brand, Candleberry Candles, since we were talking candles, this is specific sandalwood, okay? If you were to Google this, they're wanting to pop up for a sandalwood candle. And guess what? It's in the product title. It's in the image title, as we were just talking about. And then what do I see right here in the description? I see sandalwood, right? They're repeating that word. Just like the others, they're not using bullets here, but they have spaced it out. It's still very effective on the eye. They're using those persuasive words, proudly made in the USA, and in fact, Kentucky. They're looking at their consumers and what they're interested in. If you buy a candle, you're probably concerned with how long will this thing burn, right? And this thing will burn for 135 to 155 hours, right? So they're giving the clients what they need. You have to, in your product descriptions, it's not enough just to copy and paste what your wholesaler may say. You have to know what people are wanting to know, right? If people have asked you questions about the product in email or on social media, maybe that's something you should add to your listings. What are the things, because you know this industry well, it's what you're selling, what would you want to know as a consumer? We have to make it very easy to see in our listings, and that is the most strategic way. I talked about analytics a few slides ago in the beginning. I urge you, if you go into e-commerce, please look at your analytics. This data is a gold mine, and it tells you so much about the experience that your shoppers and your website is exhibiting, okay? So what are some things that you should be looking at? The easiest one is page views. So you need to know how many people are going to the website and how many people are going to the website listings of a certain item, right? That can guide, one, just your knowledge of how successful the shop is being, but it also, if a certain type of item is getting all the views, that may inform your buying decisions when you're at market, right? We can use data for things like that. Average time spent shopping. These data points will be given to you if you use an e-commerce provider like Shopify, just throwing one out there, right? How much time does a customer spend shopping on your site? If they're only on your site for 10 seconds, that may say, you know, something's looking maybe a little sketchy here. They're not liking the look of the site, and they click off immediately. We all have done that, right? We want to make sure that we want people to spend as much time on this site as possible. That's the goal. And if that number is low, the question becomes, what can we change to make our site a better shopping experience? You can monitor clicks on particular products or offers, again, testing what is working for you. Something that you may see why I threw it on here, a lot of people are confused by this term, a bounce rate. What a bounce rate determines or says is what percentage of customers enter your online store, but they leave, right? They bounce. We want people to stay. And bouncing is without visiting other pages, right? We want someone to go to the homepage, and then we want them to click apparel and sweaters, right? If they're looking for their fall sweaters. Shopping cart abandonment statistics, so interesting. These providers always talk about this. How often or how many times or with what percentage are you adding something to your cart, and then these customers are not going through with the process? This is extremely important to know, right? It can say something about your price, right? It can also say something about your checkout experience. Again, I brought up, we need the experience to be easy. We need it to be efficient. And so if a bunch of people are abandoning their carts, you may be asking too many things of them, making them give you too much information, and they're not feeling comfortable. We can glean so much from these data points. And again, products frequently purchased together. This is another interesting data point that I love, right? Because if that's the case, if you notice in the Pink Lily listing, she has listed here, pair the dress with wedges and a headband. And so if you have the ability to set up related products down below your listing, she is selling dresses and then noticing people are buying shoes and headbands to make a full outfit. You may recommend those down below. Or you might use social media content to show the selling of those 3 items together. Style one of your models wearing all 3. Or like she did in the description, and she's probably doing all 3 of these things, you can plug the other item. And guess what? You could even link it to the listing, right? To make it really easy on them. So much information here, right? There's so much to e-commerce. I'm going to go ahead and stop the sharing of my screen so we're bigger here. I appreciate so much the questions that came in during the presentation, and I'm happy to address any more. Again, before you start this, you all, I want you to first be cognizant of what e-commerce is and what it can mean for your business. You have to know, why is it that you want to go into e-commerce, and what are you hoping to accomplish with it? We then have to know what your current website setting is, right? Do you already have a website, and are you looking for an integration? Or will you be building an e-commerce store from scratch? Because this can affect your decisions. Also affecting your decisions are these data points, right? You need to look at prices. You need to look at things like support. And Shopify may be the right one for you, and WooCommerce on WordPress may be right for the person right beside you. And then Dave, he wants to use Square, right? All 3 of us here, we may use different ones. And that's because we all have different criteria. There isn't a right answer. There's a best answer for you. As you structure this e-commerce store, always think about consumer experience, okay? We have to make it easy on the consumer to use it. We have to ensure that they trust us with what we are saying. We have to funnel people to it through online content, right? We have to make the site in a way that they will scroll it, and they'll go to other pages, and they'll consider making purchases from you. And we have to get people to the website both organically and through content. If we're posting on social media, we can trigger that funnel, right? And they come in the funnel and they come over to the site. But ideally, if you're selling a purple floral one-shoulder dress, I'm going to say that 20 times fast, right? If you're selling that, I want to type that into Google. And if that were my business, I hope that I pop up, right? And how do you do that? That's everyone's goal. you do that through search engine optimization. That was definitely the hardest part of this presentation. I am so happy to help you with any questions of that, but just know this: it's not enough to make the store and to put up a listing, right? There is a strategy on how to best do it. And I urge you to do it right from the beginning, because it's so much easier to do it that way than to go back and correct your errors. It will also help your website hit the high notes and to get the correct traffic quicker if you do it from the get-go. So that was my call to action. That was my end of the sermon, I guess. But I hope that this proved important, right? There are a lot of considerations here, and it's a complex issue. So again, please let me know any questions. Everett says, when is SEO training? Was that the last one we did with you all? Was that the last one I did with you, Janet and Dave?
I think it's been a while.
Was it? Yeah, I think it was. We did.
It may have been. We may do another one again here in Louisville. We can talk about that.
Yeah.
I may also do one, on a state level. Any training that is happening, whether it be here at the Louisville Center or the Kentucky SBDC as a whole. If you go to the KentuckySBDC.com website, at the very top, you'll see training, and you can view upcoming trainings. If there is not one on the schedule, I will get one on the schedule, because that's a training that I love to do. It's also really important, right? I do know that there are ones on the schedule for Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok marketing, but if there's not one currently, either whether I partner with Dave and Janet again, but again, we're all one organization here, I'll do it. Is there a link to formal? I'm assuming it just went out to the people that had registered the replay. Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So if you want some pre-reading, I'm happy to send you some SEO information, right, that I have. I'm always happy to do that, right? But I'm more than happy to look into scheduling that. And just like this, it'll be online, easy to attend, and at no cost.
One thing too, that your previous webinars we put on our YouTube channel, so you could check into that.
Oh, good.
Back through everything.
Good. So is the SEO one on there?
The last one we did is on there, I believe.
Yeah, we did that via webinar, right, JC?
Yes, that was a webinar.
Yeah, so it's up on the YouTube.
Oh, good.
I'll send the link to that when we send out today's replay as well.
Fantastic. And if you, again, watch it, if it's on the channel, that's great. I would love for you all to come to the next one too. Maybe you have questions you want to ask one-on-one. Always good to get the info in multiple ways, but that's fantastic. Let's see here. I think I saw some more come in. If you're not so savvy on e-commerce, is there someone we can reach out to help with the process? Okay, that is a wonderful question. E-commerce can be hard, right? Website development, anything digital is hard. I urge you, if this is the case for you, and you want to go down the route of e-commerce, to use a provider like one of the big dogs that we talked about, right? Because they also have services that you can pay for, and you will have to pay for it. If you want to think more of a white glove setup, right? They can help you integrate these models. They can help you integrate the site. They can help you with these things, but they will charge you. I'm not exactly sure what that is off the top of my head, but do know that there will be a cost. My one thing I will tell you is go with a platform, if that's the case too, that you do feel comfortable with. Look at other examples, go through their materials, talk to their support, ask questions. Because if you're not so savvy about it, I have full faith that you can get savvy and you'll be comfortable. But a big issue that a lot of people face is that they start something with a provider, they feel overwhelmed, they clam up, and then they don't do it right. So it's really important which one that you choose in this situation. But also look at their setup services. You can absolutely pay for those. I would recommend and again, this is personal opinion, I'm a WordPress user myself here. I would not recommend WordPress and WooCommerce for you, right? An integration of a website is going to be much harder. So maybe look for one of the standalones. I think, Tiffany, that would be the best option if you weren't as confident with it. Mm-hmm.
Jason, let me ask you a question.
Sure.
One of the first things I think people should start with when they're, looking for customers to kind of put together a buyer persona and really understand who they're going after. Is there specific e-commerce sites that you would recommend for certain type of businesses or customers as opposed to others?
So do you care to build out that question a wee bit more for me? So we're looking at the buyer persona. You're asking if there is a provider that better matches a certain type of persona.
Yes.
Elaborate just a bit so I answer
No,
correctly.
that's exactly it. That is exactly the question.
Okay. Um, this is what I will say on that. That's an interesting question and a very good one. I think the biggest point of concern with buyer personas and matching e-commerce platforms is that, again, we have to meet our clients and our buyers where they are and in the way that they are, right? Okay, so when we know that if we have a buyer that's really heavy on online shopping, we're thinking our younger audiences that are constantly online, you're probably going to look at more of a provider like, say, a Shopify or an integration, because you're going to be building a web experience that they are used to. Okay. If your buyer persona, if you have a really established business and you're not trying to scale something just huge online, but maybe you're making a digital experience to make something easier for your current clientele and it's a little bit more internal, you may look at one of the simpler options. So in terms of actual platforms, I urge you to first look at Shopify, we'll put it that way. But again, integration and or customization is good. The second thing I said there about meeting them where they are goes on this. I think that ties really well, Dave, into the point on Etsy or on these other things. Some e-commerce people would just completely disagree with me, right? And we all have different opinions, but meet them where they are. So if you know your customer is on TikTok, if you know that they are on Etsy, prioritize that. That's the way I see it, right? Because that's aligning your e-commerce experience with the persona and with their buying their aptitudes and what they're doing. So don't be afraid of doing a few of these, right? And something I'll also point out is that it is easier to start with an Etsy or to start with a TikTok shop or to start with a marketplace and then scale up to the other, right? My biggest fear is if you all start on one of the really robust websites and you add these to others, that you will be overwhelmed, right? That's a serious issue. So as we're thinking about where are our clients and how can we meet their personas, also think about your capacity and give yourself a little grace, because you're going to be getting better and better at utilizing these. Yeah.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Casey, I've got a question for you. So for those folks who already have their e-commerce site set up and we're rolling into holiday sales, any like additional like tips or concerns to look towards for those folks?
Yes. Wonderful question. I love it. Holiday marketing is here. It is
Yeah, it is.
here. Okay. The time for holiday is now. It is now. Search engines take a while to kick in. And so even if the listings aren't going to necessarily go live yet, get it in the system to make it easy to go live. There's nothing wrong with launching early. That helps the search engine pick it up faster. You don't have to be promoting. It's fall. You want to sell your fall stuff, but you can have the other things loaded in the site, right? Because that's going to give Google more time to pick it up. Something about holiday shopping is that Q4 is incredibly competitive. And so apart from loading and getting ahead of the game, getting things out there and doing your optimized, effective listing, the most important thing that you can do is think about the holiday funnel, because you are competing on a much larger scheme than any other quarter. And so you need to be considering what is it that will bring people and convert people on this e-commerce site. For a lot of people, I'm not saying that this is the model you should take, but what a lot of people do is a form of holiday discount, right? Discount coupon codes are extremely popular during the holiday season, and you need to consider those when you're pricing your items, right? Maybe you're pricing that in your margin. Discount modeling can be contentious, right? But that is very common in e-commerce. Before I shop, before I check out, we probably all do, I look for a coupon code, right? If also I have something like that involved in my online marketing, that's a great funnel to take people over to the site because I'm offering them a deal. My number one Q4 piece of advice is that it's Tuesday, September 5th. The time to think about it was September 4th. And it's even better to do it tomorrow, right? Because you may be wanting to go to bed after this training. It's here. So don't wait till November. The search engines take time to kick in. Get it up now.
Great.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
And I will say, this is a random aside. Sometimes we roll our eyes or we get tickled at these really large retailers for launching holidays so early. Yes, Christmas in July might be a little extreme, but I will say there's a lot of marketing sense and a lot of strategy in doing that, because if you're selling a certain ornament or you're selling a certain XYZ, there's more time for that to be picked up by the search engine. And so they do it that way, you all. Yes, we can make fun of them, but they do it because they have large marketing teams that are afforded the labor of being strategic in this way. So as much as we can mimic them as small businesses is the best practice. But maybe, not an Isle of Ornaments in July. That might be extreme. Yeah.
Well,
Great
looks like
question.
that's about it. Janet, you have anything else?
Good.
No.
Thanks.
Thank you all.
So much, JC.
Sure.
And thanks everybody for joining us again. And we'll send everything out to you guys probably tomorrow sometime, I would think. And again, Janet will include the link to our previous encounters with JC. So JC, thank you as always. You're a great resource for everyone and a true expert.
Thank you. I appreciate you having me. And thank you all for the questions. This was really fun and a topic I selfishly just really enjoy talking about. So thank you all.
He'll be back.
Yes.
All right. Thanks, everybody, and have another great Tuesday. And we'll see you again at our next Toolkit Tuesday. Bye-bye, everybody.